Welcome to the Select Board meeting, with a joint meeting actually with the School Board, School Committee of Tuesday, March 19th, 2024. Please join the boards in a pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, Ms. Badger, would you like to call your board to order?
I call the school committee meeting for March 19th to order.
Mr. Canty?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pursuant to modifications made to the open meeting law by the legislature of the Commonwealth, this meeting is happening in a hybrid format. We have a member of the board that is joining us remotely over the Zoom webinar platform. We have other members of the board that are joining us in person here at Town Hall. Members of the public who wish to participate or observe this meeting may do so by joining us here in person at 26 Court Street at Town Hall, or by joining us over Zoom. On the agenda that is posted on the website is the Zoom webinar link. Members may also join or observe the meeting by watching it on Comcast Channel 9 or Verizon Channel 47. We are also announcing that PAC TV's video on demand is being replaced by YouTube on Monday, March 25th. Viewers who want to watch past meetings after March 25th will be able to watch past meetings online within 48 hours at a YouTube channel entitled Plymouth Meetings-Local Scene Streaming Channel. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. If the board doesn't mind, I'd like to take all the licenses and the administrative notes, unless the board so chooses otherwise. Pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve all the licenses and administrative notes 1 through 4 as a group.
Do I have a second?
The administrative notes. I'd like to, number one, I'd like to hear from the committee.
Yes, I'm going to, but I'm going to just
I
call
got you,
for a
okay.
vote, Charlie, just to move them along.
Exactly, okay.
Okay. So do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion? Mr. Helm?
Yes.
Mr. Bledsoe?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
And myself, yes. And now we have Mr. Schillings here to speak. Come up to the microphone. Make sure the green light's on, please, and state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Michael Schilling. I'm a resident of the town of Plymouth and the current president of the Plymouth Division of the Ancient Order of Hibernians.
Yeah, good. Is it?
Green.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll reiterate. My name is Michael Schilling. I'm a resident of the town of Plymouth and the current president of the Plymouth Division of the Ancient Order of Hibernians. We're here in front of you this evening to give you an overview of what we presented to the Memorials Advisory Committee at their last hearing. And this is the Dublin historical marker sign that we're proposing down in the waterfront district in the town of Plymouth. Who we are. We are part of a greater organization that is the oldest and largest Irish-American organization in the United States. Our division itself was chartered back in 1992. The organization as a whole is 250 years old, while our division in the town of Plymouth is only about 30 years old. Since then, we have made it an initiative of ours throughout the entire South Shore to educate, commemorate, and preserve Irish and Irish-American history throughout the eastern part of Massachusetts. Where this all began was the launch of the South Shore Irish Heritage Trail back in May of 2022. The Irish Heritage Trail is a driving trail that starts as far north as Weymouth and works its way all the way down to the town of Plymouth. And during their research, when they were creating the trail, is where they came across the documentation that named a specific section of the town, of the waterfront area of the town of Plymouth as Dublin. Now, the location, exact location of this area is down in the waterfront district. It is bordered by what was then historically known as Commercial Street, but is now Bradford Street, Union, Water, and Sandwich. Within that neighborhood, there's also two interior ones, one being Watercure and the other rightly named as Emerald Street. This area here is in the documents that the trail found that in Pilgrim Society notes describes several areas and neighborhoods in the town of Plymouth that had nicknames. One of them was this such area, and it was known as Dublin because of the high dense of Irish immigrants that came and ended up living in this part of town. Now, when did this occur? It was in the mid-1800s, which makes sense because during that time period in Ireland is when the largest mass immigration ever occurred due to the Great Hunger, and it was the largest immigration of Irish people that came to this country in its history and going on. The research that we conducted later on after we found out about the information and saw the documentation and everything else, we initially, a year ago, proposed this and went in front of the Historical Commission. At that time, I was lucky enough to meet another resident of the town of Plymouth, a woman of the name Ginny Davis, who was able to, in the meeting, raise her hand and say that she could attest to the area as it was constituted back then, because her great-grandmother was born on Emerald Street, and she had stories of their upbringing in the area and everything else. After I met Jenny, we actually spent extensive time in the resources of the Plymouth Public Library because of the amount and the extensive census records that the town holds all the way back to the mid-1800s. And we were able to go through those records and pull out names and families of Irish descent that lived in this neighborhood. Most of the men worked in the maritime industry. Most of the women worked in the more opulent homes that were up on the hill and everything else. So that we were able to go through that research because of the resources of the town of Plymouth and confirm what those documents stated. This is a copy here of the documents that the trail initially found that talked about the neighborhood of Dublin and gave its location where it was a southeast neighborhood, at the junction of Water and Union Street. So this is what we're proposing. This is the historical marker sign that we want to erect at the intersection of Water Street and Union Street. It would be in the public promenade that is currently there in front of what's known as the Water Street Cafe. I have met with DPW and town engineering to discuss the location of it so that it would be not a hindrance to any type of motor vehicle, views or anything like that for anyone that's driving around that corner. They said that they would put together a license agreement for us so that we're cognizant of the fact that while it does rest on town property, we would be responsible for maintenance of the sign. And then what we have here are renderings of what the sign would look like in place. Now, this is the location that was agreed upon between our organization and town engineering and DPW. And this would give it the easiest access for anyone walking around the neighborhood and being able to read the sign and get the information on it without it being a hindrance to any motor vehicle views or anything like that. And that is what we're here to present today.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any questions from the board? Mr. Hallam?
I have a question for any member of the Memorials Committee who is maybe in attendance.
We have two members back
I have
there.
two members talking to each other, not paying attention to me. Everett, would you please come up?
Memorials Committee? Stop smiling and answer.
One of you come on up. You can't get away from me that easily, guys.
Steve
First-
Wyden.
yeah.
I'm on the Memorial Committee. Our meeting met last week, and we discussed it for a long time. Their presentation was great, and we approved it unanimously.
Thank you for that, but I have a question. I have a question for you.
Okay.
I didn't want I have a question for you.
Sure.
First of all, I'm absolutely in favor of this. But this question is directed to the Memorials Committee. My concern is not about this in particular, but I think it's great that we're getting a lot of requests for things like this in town. I think it makes our downtown much more interesting for visitors. My only concern, and you can do with it what you will, because I won't be around much longer, is there any kind of rule, design concepts, unifying design concepts? My concern is that, you know, since the Memorial Committee has been reinstated, we've seen a lot of requests, okay? They appear to me to be very different in design and concept. And my concern is that, not that they all need to look exactly alike, but just like Plymouth has a tendency to do in the past, we do 1,000 different things and it all looks different. Okay, there's no concept of unification or anything. We have no way signing, which this is, you know, this would be part of. And I'm not saying that this needs to have some sort of design review, but my question to the committee is, do you have any design guidelines? And if not, do you plan to try to adopt any?
We don't have any at this moment. We look at every site because every site is different. What you do at Cottage Park or what you do at Forges Field is a lot different than what you do downtown. We would, if we felt that the sign wasn't appropriate, we would go back to the individuals and talk with them. But it's kind of hard when there are so many different signs in Plymouth and they all look different, and there is no bylaw on what signs look like. And if you remember, I tried to get a committee together so we could have a sign design review committee, so we could come with something that would be uniformed. And so far that hasn't happened. But yes, we look at every site, we look at it, and we discuss it, and if it looks appropriate for the site, then we approve it. But if it wasn't, then we would go back to the individual and explain to them that what our problems were or what we didn't like, and I'm sure we could work things out.
So a simple answer to my question is no, you do not have any design guidelines.
No.
And also, by extension, it doesn't sound like any are planned for the future.
Not that I know of, but since you're concerned, I will bring it up to Mr. Golden, our chairman, at our next meeting.
Thank you very much. I would
welcome.
appreciate that.
Mr. Blatzer.
Yeah, Steve, just real quick, and I'll get back to you, Mike. Steve, that's something maybe you might want to talk to the Historical Commission too, the board, and maybe you can work together on something like that.
Fine, I'll bring it up to Mr. Golden, and
Yeah, I think
your comments will be...
Yeah, because they went
relayed
through
to him.
historic, and they were okay with it, so, but that, anyway,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Mike, one question, when's the parade? When do we get the Irish, the St. Patrick's Day parade?
We have fundraising to do. We have to figure out how we're going to pay for it.
Although it'd have to be a different day than Situate to get all you guys
Yeah,
out of Situate.
I will say this, this is something that has not just caught the attention of local officials and residents. It's also been flagged by the government of Ireland itself. They've requested that we put in a grant for what's called ESP, which is their Immigrant Support Program, and help fund the project. And in June, we are planned right now, initial staging plans to have the Consul General to come down and actually walk the neighborhood and let her get like a little historical background on it. So as we get that information put together, we're going to kind of put together like a public invitation so that anyone that wants to join us, they can do that and become even more informed about what we're doing. With regards, I would like to put on the record with regards to the sign itself, there was someone in the audience at the Memorials Committee that brought up that
Ms. Davis right now.
it was brought up With it being adjacent to a historical district and with the initial talk or initial idea of bringing this neighborhood into the historical district, that after we get our approval, that we would go back to the Historical Commission and have that discussion with them, which I don't have a problem with at all. When I met with them a year ago, I said when the time came, I would, even though they said I wasn't required to, I would still come to them one more time with the final design aspects and let them give input on anything that they felt was going to be more in line with whatever signage that they have going in or planning on going in that area. So,
thank you. So just for full disclosure, I'm a proud member of the Ancient Order of Hibernians. This group here is made up of some of the finest gentlemen and ladies in different, not in this particular organization, but in different, in the sister orders. It's a great group. This will be great for our tourism. I know Lee Filson at Sea, Plymouth. They'll be able to send people down there with Irish from Ireland. And if anybody doesn't realize how big the Irish heritage is in this town, next St. Patrick's Day, just take a walk around the waterfront of downtown Plymouth and just see all the Irish. The town was mobbed Sunday, and it'll be great for economic development in this town. And anyway, great. It's going to be a great thing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes. I didn't bring that up. No, I didn't bring that up yet. Yeah. On Friday, Ms. Davis and I are meeting with the owners of the Water Street Cafe as well to go over final designs with them and everything else so that they're fully aware of what's going on.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and we're going to bring it back to the board and turn it over to Ms. Badger, as we're going to talk, I believe, about the budget first.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay.
Forgot, I have to turn this on, sorry. Sorry. Thank you for having us for our joint meeting. We're really wanted to share with you an update that we've as a board have seen a couple of times with our FY24 budget status, where we stand. I know we talked about FY25 and the struggles we're going to have, but we wanted to just give you an update on what's happening in FY24 within the school. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Blaisdell. Thank you.
Feel free at any point to interrupt me, and Dr. Campbell or myself can answer any questions. So this is just, like Mrs. Badger said, this is really an update that the board has already heard, but just also wants you to be aware of where we stand right this moment in time. There are slides that you have that are up here, but currently, just so you're aware, we have just under $1.3 million remaining in our FY24 school budget, about $154,000 in operational funds and just over $1.1 million in salaries. There are several areas of concern that we've had this year that are driving some of our expenditures this year. One being special education, another facilities, McKinney-Vento, which is homeless transportation, and unencumbered pays. The first thing that I'll talk a little bit about is special education. Special education tuition, transportation, legal services, and contractual services that we currently provide for our students is approximately 12% over what we anticipated spending this year. We're looking at about 19% over what we expected in transportation, which is about $600,000. We're about 400% over in legal expenses, about $134,000. About 292% over in contractual services, which is about $343,000. I'll explain some of these in a few moments. So special education, like I said, is about $1.1 million over what we anticipated for our budget. Our contract, speaking of transportation first, our contracted transportation company can only provide so many vehicles. There's driver shortages and things are tough for them to expand and offer us more services. So what we end up doing is we are forced to contract outside with smaller companies. And several of these companies charge anywhere from $500 to $800 a day to transport students So that's a huge expense to us, and that's driving a big portion of that 19% of where we expected to pay versus where we're expecting to pay this year. Contractual services consist of working with outside agencies when we're not able to find a staff member. There are many staff members like OT, occupational therapy, physical therapy, behavior support services. They're tough to get, and they make a lot more money when they work on the outside than when they do for us, significantly more. So we're not able to hire a staff member. So what we end up doing is contract for services that we need to provide students by their individualized education plan. So we're spending a lot more money on contracted services than salaries than we had planned on doing. We have approximately $200,000 in pending placements for the rest of the year. We're waiting for some new placements for some students and some alternative placements for other students. So we have some students who are currently in out-of-district placements, and that placement can't necessarily provide them the service they need. So we actually need to be looking at other services that provide a little bit more support than that outside service can provide. And a lot of times that comes with additional cost as well.
Yeah, just to that point that Dr. Blaisdell made. So these are students that were previously placed and accounted for financially, and that, as Dr. Blaisdell said, they have significant needs. We're very blessed to have a number of special education programs in our district, and in most cases, those can support a lot of students with complex neurological, cognitive, multi-handicap needs. These are students that have significant disabilities that don't fit within our current programs, and even in some of these cases, the programs that they're in aren't successful enough for them, so consequently they end up in a more restrictive setting, which ultimately costs additional money.
The next one is facilities. I will tell you, ESSER has helped us significantly, and I'll explain that in just a minute. With obviously 13 buildings that are aging, there are often significant repairs that need to be made to make sure we provide a safe and comfortable learning environment for both our students and our staff. One aspect that has made this more difficult was some of the actions we took during COVID. We replaced a lot of our HVAC filters with something called MERV 13, which is just it's a thicker, it filters a lot more air. We were following the guidance from the state by replacing those filters. After talking to several HVAC companies, we were having a lot of HVAC issues back last summer and spring. And we brought in several HVAC companies, and what they said was that MERV 13 was too much of a filter.
It's taxing.
It's too thick. So it was burning out a lot of our motors, forcing a lot of our parts to work a lot more than they needed to. And so several of our buildings, as you know, have HVAC units that are more than 25 years old. Some of the manufacturers are no longer in business, so we end up retrofitting units. So we were replacing a lot of condensers, we were replacing a lot of belts, we were replacing a lot of other HVAC parts, but those are some that stick out. This year we've expended or encumbered 66% more on our contracted services. Most of it was HVAC. In addition, this year alone, we have spent $347,000 on HVAC, roofing repairs, and HVAC supplies using our ESSER 3 funds, our federal funds. That's in addition to our budgeted money. Over the past 3 years, using ESSER 3, we've actually spent a total of almost $700,000 using ESSER funds just on HVAC alone. We do not have any more funds in ESSER at this point in time, so at this point, anything that we do is coming through budget or some of the building use funds that rentals bring in. I don't know if there's anything. And then the last piece that's really causing us quite an issue is really McKinney-Vento, which is homeless, and foster care transportation. We are required by law to transport students who are homeless or in foster care to their original school district. We might be transporting students to another town or from another town, depending on where they're located at this current moment in time. And again, much of that transportation is it's contracted with small transportation companies at that same rate of somewhere between $500 and $800 a van per day. We budgeted a total of $550,000 for McKinney-Vento and foster care combined, transportation combined. To date, we have spent or encumbered almost $804,000. That's 46% over in each category. McKinney-Vento transportation is reimbursed by the state, but this money goes into the general fund, and it usually comes in July or August after the fiscal year closes, so it goes back into the general fund. This year, the state did reimburse the town $151,000. The number comes from our end-of-year report that we have to file from the state. So they did reimburse the town in advance in January $151,000. But again, that's money that goes into the general fund. It doesn't come back into the school department, depending, even though whatever we spend.
Yeah, so one thing that so we have taken some actions in order to, and I think Dr. Blaisdell is going to get into this, we've taken some actions in order to address these potential deficits, but I wanted to be clear to both the boards here and the general public that we will not end the year in a deficit. We have a plan. We're very appreciative of the town manager's recommendation, this board and the town meeting members for supporting the reserve account for salaries this year, which we will need to access. But I just want to be clear that our operational budget will not end in a deficit. So I'm going to get into that, Dr. Blaisdell.
Perfect. So some of the things that we've done is on January 29th, we froze our budget due to the unanticipated costs that we had. We also looked at, basically that was for unanticipated costs and to make sure that programming happened through the end of the year. There were certain programs that have to happen. We cannot not have those programs. And to make sure that schools have the items that they definitely need to end the school year. We don't want programs or teachers to not have certain things. So we needed to make sure that we at least froze the budget to make sure we had those items. In addition, what we've done is we've scrutinized purchase orders. We've closed purchase orders with balances. We met with cost center managers to make sure we knew exactly what each building, each school needed. We're analyzing all remaining salary funds. We're calculating all remaining payroll expenses that are not encumbered. We've transferred we're going to be transferring funds from salaries to operating, where we've had to contract out, where we anticipated having a person, but instead we had to contract out. So it's just basically taking the place of. And then obviously finally reserving the request from, requesting the salary reserve from the town. And then just kind of look at salary funds. After requesting the salary funds, there'll be approximately $1.94 million, and we need about $1.87 million to finish the fiscal year. These needed funds include substitutes, which total about $95,000 of payroll, which is about 2 weeks. We have coaches stipends, we have club stipends, we have 403B matches, buyouts, bus drivers, and other contracted allowances. In addition, like I said, there are several expenses that we had to contract out for. And I apologize, the first line should say current operational funds available. So at this point, like I said, we have about $154,000 remaining. We know by meeting with all those cost center managers, we have about $480,000 in known operational needs, which looks like about an estimated shortfall of about $324,000. But we're going to be looking at moving some of those salary funds that we used contracted services instead of our own people. And again, as Dr. Campbell said, we will not be ending with a deficit. The budget is frozen. We're examining expenses and only purchasing items that we truly need through the end of the fiscal year. We've already talked to Derek and Lynn Barrett about the salary reserve, and we'll be officially requesting salary reserve funds. We're examining where we might be able to even shift some expenses to grants. There are some very unknown costs, though. Special education placements, which we've touched on. Homeless and foster care transportation needs change daily. A student may move in, or we have to provide transportation immediately. We have to transport those kids. And the other big piece is when we switch to cooling for HVAC, we're not sure what units will start. Some of the older ones, what will start and what needs repair. So those are just some of the concerns as we kind of go towards the end of the year. Dr. Kim?
Yeah, just, I mean, the concerns that I've had, and, I think we've talked about before, is the hiring and retaining of staff. In this case, really these hard-to-acquire positions, which has forced us to, because we have a contract in terms of that education plan, to contract out for these related services and specialties that we don't have the staff to adequately address. So that has been a driving force. Transportation, and I've said that before, is something that we are very aware of. It's a sore subject with me. The fact that an agency can charge upwards of $800 a day for that service, it should not be allowed, in my opinion. So I have a concern about that, but they know, that these agencies know that we need to transport our students. We are obligated. We are fiscally and programmatically obligated to transport our homeless students, our foster students, our students with disabilities to these programs and to and from these communities. So, and we're doing everything we can to find ways to reduce that. We've hired some of our, we've purchased a small fleet of buses to take over one charter this year. That has helped us to curb approximately $175,000 a year annually by bringing that on. The ability to try to do collaborative purchasing and to find either a collaborative or other communities that would be willing to cost share to do that. These are things that we're looking and we continue to work with local communities and agencies to do because it's just, we can't continue to operate this way. But just want to stress that we will not end with a deficit this year. We have a plan, and we feel comfortable that we will be able to meet this shortfall with the plan that Dr. Blaisdell has pointed out. Happy to answer any questions, too.
Mr. Canty?
So this is to either Dr. Blaisdell or Dr. Campbell. So you mentioned you will be requesting the salary reserve. When do you anticipate you'll likely do that?
We've already had initial conversations with both Derek and Lynn. Right now, all of our spring sports are coming in, so it probably will be within the next 2 to 3 weeks, I would say, to make the formal request. The spring sport, there are certain pieces that are, and it's different than the town. We encumber all of our salaries when we can,
right?
But there are certain ones that are not, and one is the coaches' salaries, which actually comes out to a couple $100,000. There's a couple of things that we don't. So I would say before our April break, so before mid-April.
Okay. So, I mean, just to reiterate, when that money was, since I was the one that made the motion that put it in that salary reserve at that time, that then led to town meeting adopting that, the thinking was that that would provide an opportunity for, during that process, that the town manager and the finance director would be able to see what the money, all the money that you guys have spent, all the money that you've needed to spend, all the reimbursements you're getting from state, from federal, from grants and anything like that. So I just want to make sure that in your plan to ask for that request that you're leaving enough time for that review process to be undertaken, because when that money was put aside for that purpose, obviously that was contemplated as part of that, and I'm sure Derek and Lynn will be asking those types of questions. So I'm sure you already knew that, but I just wanted to stress that that was, part of that equation as well. But yes. I'm glad to hear that we won't have a Brockton-style issue here. So
no, certainly, right. And I know that there was a question that was asked, I think the last time we were here, was certainly not. Clearly, some unanticipated expenses, and that's what happens sometimes with both special education placements. The transportation in the homeless line, we look at historicals, but it's been extraordinary. And you see across other communities that this is something that collectively we're trying to address because we can't continue, even though there are some districts that are smaller than us, it's a big hit for them as well. But we have approximately 100 students that are homeless at any given time during the course of the year. So that's a significant amount.
When you say collectively, like working with other districts to try and like pool resources
Yeah,
for these
so
types of
thank you. So we're trying to find a way to how can we be more efficient and not rely on some of these agencies, whether it be through working with a local collaborative to see if they would be willing to take on a fleet and allow us to do collaborative purchasing through them, if we could collect resources across districts, you know, because some of these communities where we're transporting students to, there could be 3 or 4 communities
Right.
along Route 3 that are going to the same school.
Right.
So it's in all of our best interest to try to collaborate and to bring those costs down. But that takes a lot of planning. We're actually been working with the business manager in Carver, who has helped to spearhead some of this with us. So we're hoping that we can get somewhere with that. But this is, transportation is something that I talk about a lot. It's very frustrating, but it's very costly. And I'd rather we all would rather put those dollars towards something more productive.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome.
Sorry, Dr. Sorensen.
Dr. Blaisdell, let me bring you back to McKinney-Vento for a second, because you said something I want you to clarify. You know, we have always known with McKinney-Vento that a foster child or a homeless child living in Plymouth, we have the responsibility, as you said, to bring them to their origin, their school of origin. But in your presentation just a moment ago, you said it's going both ways. Mm-hmm. And that confused me, because why wouldn't the town where that homeless child is residing, why wouldn't they pick up the expense for bringing that child to us? How does it go both ways?
If a child originally may have lived in Plymouth, and then they doubled up with a family that lives in Hanover or Braintree or somewhere else, it goes back to the school of origin. So because we were the school of origin, we have to then go pick that child up and transport them back to us. There are some pieces that we do some cost shares, but they were originally one of our students. They had a residence established in Plymouth, but if they became homeless.
There's something illogical in that, right? Isn't there? Because we have to transport them
Sometimes
to Hanover.
there's not
Why
logic
wouldn't
in some-
Hanover have to transport at $800 a day?
Yes, and every community is in the same boat in terms of the process. It can be quite frustrating, and sometimes we do have best interest in meetings to determine whether or not it's in the child's best interest to actually return or be sent to that school of origin, because it could have been that they were there for a week. And that's not really establishing normalcy. It may be better to leave them where they're at. So there's a process that we go through with the state in that, but this is the process that we're, in terms of the fiscal responsibility that we have to go through with the state.
So one final point, does it ever occur then that Hanover has to come here to get the child and bring the child to Hanover and pay the $800?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
right.
And they contact all local vendors. They have to follow procurement laws and reach out to different vendors and try and get different prices and try and go with the cheapest one. And right now that's getting harder and harder to do because the number of vendors that can do it is limited.
Transportation is something that, sorry to cut you off, Dr. Blaisdell, even our buses, we're very fortunate. It's hard to imagine this, but we're very fortunate that we have we can extend our contract. We have 3 more extensions to our current contract for our yellow buses. There are some districts that are going out for bid for new contracts with yellow buses that are coming back with 40, 50, 60% increases over their current year. That would be $3-4 million for us. So when I say transportation is something that we really need to try to find a way to get in front of, it's, we have a few years with our yellow buses, but more importantly, I think if we were to prioritize our efforts right now, it's in the vans and the small fleets that we need to try to get in front of.
Mr. Blutzer?
Dr. Campbell, I understand a child gets taken from a home and goes into foster care in a different town, do they necessarily have to go back to the school where they're taken from, or can it be worked out, especially if it's going to be a long-term foster care situation, have them enroll in the schools where they're living in? That might save a lot of money for everybody.
Yeah, sure. And that's a very good question, Mr. Bledsoe.
And I know it's regulated. I know this is all regulated.
Sure. So it is regulated, but there are opportunities where we or like either Plymouth Public Schools or another district could request a best interest determination, which is run by the state, so that we would meet to talk about that particular case, the circumstances around it, and make our plea for the best interest of the child. And it may result in leaving the student here in Plymouth or leaving them in the district that they're at.
Because sometimes taking somebody out of an environment
Can be
is a positive thing for
Sure.
them. So,
Yep.
and that includes the schools. The other question I had is, I just want to understand and I understand the transportation costs. I mean, even in our own town, we have kids that live out in Saquosh, and that's expensive right there, just transporting them from our own town, even though it's really not, we go through 2 towns to get there, but that's another story for this unique town. But the McKinley, Venton, and
Vento, yes.
Venton,
They're homeless, yep.
yeah, so we get reimbursed for that expense. Is it 100% reimbursed?
McKinney-Vento, it has been recently, yes.
So I want to understand, so the money goes back into the general fund of the town or
Yes.
of the school?
Town.
Or it
Town.
doesn't?
Town. So we're accounting for that now in real time, and then there's a reimbursement that happens at a later date.
Okay, so it comes out of your budget?
Correct.
You're paying for it, but it goes back?
We're paying for it in the fiscal year, yes, correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from board members? Mr. Canty?
I know a couple years ago, when we were having a finance committee, school budget subcommittee, there was talk about potentially slowly onboarding yellow buses
Yes,
into
yes.
town ownership. I don't know exactly what the cost per bus would be, but if we're talking about right now, maybe 60% increases, maybe who knows what it'll be once we're cresting that hill ourselves. Is there any thought or analysis of, like, would it be approaching worth it to start onboarding our own buses to avoid paying out the nose for someone to use someone else's buses?
I personally think so, Dr. Blaisdell.
While we're looking at the vans, at the same time I am looking at yellow bus costs and so forth. Worcester did it and Brockton did it.
Yep.
Hingham's done it. Cohasset's done it. The Carver currently does it. What I'm going to be doing is I was at a presentation with Worcester, and so I'm going to actually go out and meet with Worcester and have a
Yep.
conversation with Worcester
Yep.
to try and see exactly what they did. The good thing is we have 3 years
Yep.
because we have our current contract. So I'm going to be meeting with Worcester and trying to see exactly what they did. I've reached out to a couple different companies so far to talk about purchasing versus leasing, what those prices might be, and looking at, is this something we could take on
Yep.
over time? So that is in process, but it might be looking at, do we take on a portion, like you said, or do we take on the whole thing?
Right.
But I'm looking at that as well. And the good thing is, I look at it as we have 3 years, which is
Gives us 3 years to plan.
good, because our next contracts, if the school committee votes to take the 3-year options, they're only about a 2.75% increase per year.
Okay.
Those options.
So I have a couple other questions, but they're going to circle back to a related thread. So in terms of the McKinney-Vento and other transportation-related, either homeless, foster, or special needs out of district, do we have knowledge of whether they're often being transported from Plymouth to somewhere else in Plymouth County, or are they being transported from Plymouth to some other county.
Most of them, there are some kids that leave Plymouth County.
Okay.
Most of them are within an hour
I was gonna say,
drive.
it's more of a time,
Uh-huh.
within an hour.
So some of them would be going like Barnstable County or Bristol
Yes,
County?
so it's,
maybe
that
some-
hour is really the sort of the threshold, and
Sure.
then that best interest determination is like sort of an automatic, like, it's not in their best interest to be traveling over 2 hours round trip, so.
Right, I would assume, right.
Yeah.
So is the majority in county?
Yeah,
I
a
would
good, a
say-
good majority.
So in talking, I mean, I know the state loves regionalization and collaborative working together, and, you know, ostensibly, we have a county structure here that come and give us really big checks periodically. Has there been any discussion about, like, collaborating with the other districts on a county level, either through county government or doing our own thing, but still on a county? Because if we're sending people to each other's towns and we're paying for that, then maybe we could realize some collective cost savings by collaborating on those lines. And then the other part would be, if we're already doing that, if these other school districts in the county, townwide or regional, are also dealing with these cost increases for yellow buses, could we also talk to them about collaborating on buying buses for all the interested communities over time, so that we're spreading that cost? Because I know when we talked about onboarding it slowly, it was like if we bought all the buses in 1 year, that would be extremely expensive, right? Some of these other communities may be in contracts or have just renewed contracts, and they're maybe not interested in buying buses yet. But if they knew they were going to want to buy buses when their contracts are up, and if we all were working towards a collective goal, like we did with like Plymouth County outreach for the opioid epidemic, maybe we could reduce the bulges in those periods when every individual town is buying their buses over time, with the idea that over a certain designated period of time, every school district that wanted them could get their buses and not have to be paying astronomical costs for transportation. Is that
Yeah.
something that?
I think that certainly is something, not that specifically around the county, but certainly I think reaching out to any and all communities, particularly in the county, that may be interested. Some have taken over their own transportation and others haven't, but I think that certainly as we work with other school districts, both in the county and outside the county, I think that's just adds more options for us to consider, whether it's collaborative purchasing of vehicles, buses, whatnot.
And Dr. Campbell and I
Yeah.
have had conversations about how we could use the county to benefit us in a number
Right.
of different ways. So
Right.
it has been on like the
Yeah,
tip of our.
because we'd be,
yeah.
if we were a county, we'd be a bigger customer
Yes.
for a
Mhm.
bus company, right? So we could maybe
Right.
get a better
Yeah, but yeah.
price if they knew whatever district, they're going to be able to sell 10, 15 buses a year every year forever, or something like
Right,
that,
right.
right? Then that might be something to think about.
It's worth a conversation.
Anything
Sure.
we can do to bring the cost
Yeah.
down.
Yes, because I know,
We're
I mean,
trying.
it's been a constant refrain.
Constant, yes.
You guys are in the education business, but you're also kind of in the transportation.
Yeah, people say you don't want to get in the transportation business. I say we already are, because, but we just don't have control over it. So when issues come up, there still
Yes.
are issues. So I'd much rather, with a well-articulated plan, particularly in a collaborative way, excuse me, with other communities and perhaps the county, find ways to address something that is a collective concern for all of us.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I was going to really touch on the two things Kevin said almost word for word. But the one part I found missing was, I think the state needs to get involved here a little bit, and I'm not usually on that wagon. But I think it's very much so. I think it's come down to like, why you're paying $800 because there's not enough players in the game. I think I'm going to get out of the produce business very quickly. Seriously. I mean, before, years ago, we had Town Brook, Silver Lake, and, I had Carey's, Duxbury had Herrick's. Everybody had their own, school operation. And I think if we band it up, the county idea, or if it's a state thing, and, if there's two communities going back and forth, I think the legislators have to look at this and start clamping down on some laws. One is the amount max you can charge to bring a student somewhere. And the second is to have it split between the two communities in which they're going back and forth in. And you know what? That's the way it is. So has anybody here or your board tried to reach out to the state? Set up a meeting with the governor?
So we haven't had a meeting with the governor, but we've
Not
had
yet.
meetings with our state legislators. But this is something that needs to be a part of that conversation, not just reimbursement for transportation, which has been our focus, but trying to create some reform in terms of what these companies, I know they're in a for-profit business, but there should be a cap on what they can charge school
I mean, with
districts.
everything else, with the bidding laws and so on, what they are, from my past
It can
experience
range
years
from,
ago,
as Dr. Blaisdell said,
you couldn't get away with that, you know?
Yeah.
And you shouldn't, seriously. So I just want to say you have our board support.
I appreciate
And
that.
anything moving forward, and I mean more than just signing a letter, we need to take a field trip, as we say. I'll pay for it.
I
And
do.
go to the State House and set up a meeting, and I'm sure there's other communities that'll go with us, but we can't just sit back and, I mean, this is
Yeah,
craziness.
it's getting out of control. It's out of control.
So I'm just putting it out there, so if you
Appreciate
like that idea, and
Yes.
contact Eric, and we'll stand with you, and hopefully other communities.
We appreciate that.
I believe it's also going deeper a little bit too. When a lot of people are going out for the yellow bus bids, they're only getting one, maybe two responses. And there are some concerns across, I'll just say this, concerns across the state, and I believe it's being looked into at the state level, from what my School Business Administrators Association has said.
I'm just guessing, is it Ryder? Is that who does the contracts for the school buses, the yellow buses?
We have First Student, others
First
have,
Student.
Yeah.
but then there's other companies around the state, and
Right.
there's usually one or two. Five Star is another company that's big that's coming into Massachusetts now. Now I think you'll see Five Star on the side of their buses, but I think it's owned by a European company now, if I remember correctly.
I think it's due to, the number that are actually in the business that makes, you really have no choice. And so that's where you need regulation.
Exactly.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, just because before we move on to the next subject, I mentioned in the past that Lee Hartman and I, the planning director, had attended the Lieutenant Governor's listening sessions last fall. And we talked about a lot of the things that we really need the governor's office to do to help us at the local level. Thinking about new ways of coming up with revenues was one of them. Procurement was another one. And the Lieutenant Governor really took all that information to heart, and they created what is now known as the Municipal Empowerment Act. And that came out of statewide listening sessions from municipal CEOs. So clearly the governor's office is listening to what's happening at the local level, and they're certainly willing to do whatever they can to assist. So I don't know if you've had those opportunities, Dr. Campbell, to have those conversations, but it's worked for us. And then I would also add that as of next Thursday, March 28th, the county is convening what is known as the Plymouth County Executive Council. And what they're trying to do, and this is going to be their first meeting, talk to, again, town managers and town administrators in the county to learn more about what is happening at the local level and what can they do, what can the county do to assist in solving some of their problems. So, that meeting is next week, and I know Sylvia will be in attendance. I'll be away next week. But, again, that's another forum where I think you will have very similar conversations across municipal boundaries on the things that are plaguing us. So, maybe that's another opportunity that we can join efforts with the other cities and towns in the county.
And I just want to say, it's something we have been working on. I feel like the entire time I've been on the school committee, it's different ways for us to deal with transportation. And it's funny you mentioned a field trip. We have our MASC Day on the Hill on May 6th, which I hope some of our members are able to attend. But on that day, hopefully we'll be able to have some meetings with our state legislators so that we can get this across, because there's so much we need help with. It is something that we need to have intervention on the state level for, because you look around, I think Dr. Campbell and I were talking yesterday that Braintree had to cut $8 million from their budget yesterday. Weymouth was like a 3 or 4. It's across it's not just us, it's not
No,
just
no,
Plymouth County, it's everywhere.
good.
So, but we have been, and we will continue to, but we really do appreciate that, and we will take you up on your help.
Excuse me, John, I see your hand up there.
Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I'll try to be concise. I think on the transportation, one of the things that the state legislature has failed to do is level the playing field. Obviously, regional school systems get a fair amount of reimbursement on transportation, and unfortunately, if you look at a community like Plymouth, we're on the outside looking in, even though we're bigger than the Silver Lake Regional District, the Whitman, Hanson, and so many others. That whole structure is unfair. And the other points that you made, Mr. Chairman, are excellent. The Brockton analogy is an apt one. I know that there's been a baseline report looking at their issues. Obviously, the fiscal, I think it was a $14 million deficit from FY23, potentially $25 million deficit in the current fiscal year we're in, and more to come in FY25. If you look at that report, one of the things that they did wrong was they actually went out and got their own buses. I don't have the report in front of me now, but I do believe that they misrepresented the amount of savings that they anticipated by going out and trying to go that alone. The question I have of Adam and Chris is that I know it's a small number, certainly in comparison to the city of Brockton, but I just want to make sure that anything you do budgetarily, and it's nice to hear that operationally, you're not going to have a deficit come the end of FY24, but I just want to make sure that anything you do is accounted for and acknowledged going in at FY25, so that a year from now, we're not dealing with a deficit on the school side that might be 2 to 3 times greater than what you're currently dealing with.
I can assure you, Mr. Mahoney, thank you. This is Chris. We account for every dollar in our budget, and certainly are not in a situation where we would have the examples that you mentioned in Brockton.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And we're monitoring that on a regular basis too. So just keep in mind, not only are we accounting for that, budgeting for that, but we're monitoring our expenditures regularly.
Daily, sometimes multiple times a day.
Yep.
One of the things that Brockton did do in that report was there were certain grants that ended, and there were people being paid from those grants. And instead of moving those people's salaries from the grants to the budget, they left those people's salaries in a grant that no longer existed. All of the people, we have people that are being paid from ESSER this year. When we created FY25, we moved those salaries to budget. So those salaries are accounted for next year. Another issue with Brockton is when they were doing the bus piece, from the report, it looks like they didn't account for all the maintenance. They didn't account for certain pieces that go along with owning a vehicle. Those are 2 key highlights that I took from that report. But one of the major one was really the grants and the salaries. They didn't move those people, or not all those people.
I think that's why it's important, as Dr. Blaisdell said earlier, looking at some of these communities that have taken ownership of their transportation, that are doing it well and have had success and learn. That's what we do in education, right? We're trying to learn for best practices. So, working with those communities and trying to look at what they've done, what they're doing, the pitfalls, shortfalls, the successes, and to come up with a plan that's going to be best for Plymouth, knowing that, we're as large as we are, that yellow buses, we would need approximately 75 to 80 in order to do the 3-tier system that we have now. So,
Any more questions from the board or comments?
Everyone over here good? Any questions? No? Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
thank you very much.
And now we have, we're doing the,
Yes.
okay.
Thank you. So,
Statement of interest?
Yes, so now we're going to do the statement of interest. I know we did this last year, I think at this basic time for Hedge and Cold Spring to go through our MSBA application for hopefully a new school. So, Dr. Campbell?
Yes, thank you. So again, we appreciate you taking the time. We need your formal approval of this. As Ms. Badger said, we were here approximately at this time last year asking for your support for the statement of interest that will be submitted prior to April 12th of this year to the Mass School Building Authority, which, as we know, is the state grant agency for building renovation as well as new construction. While we were not successful in our application last year, it had nothing to do with the application itself. Dr. Blaisdell and I actually requested a meeting with MSBA shortly thereafter, learning that we were not chosen, just to find out, is there anything that we could do better with the application? Absolutely not. I felt the application was thorough enough. It has the statement of interest that was well articulated. It really came down to the number of requests and the funding that they could prioritize for all those requests. Approximately 30% of statement of interest that were submitted last year were granted this year as a project. Coincidentally, I actually had a meeting with MSBA at South High School today for about 2 hours as they're looking to host a conference for their process for post-occupancy. They have a new process called post-occupancy reporting, and they really liked working with us over at Plymouth South High School and asked us to host that. So it was a good opportunity to talk to them not only about that, but to also reinforce that we're eagerly awaiting the process this year. So the statement of interest that we're submitting this year is just a resubmission of the application that we came forward with to you last year, looking for your support.
Yeah, and then we have already voted at our March 4th meeting. So we have voted as a committee to support this, so we just need your support. And I do know that the resolution has to, or the motion has to be read verbatim. So I have it if people need it.
One's on the front, one's on the back.
Oh, perfect.
Do you have to do two separate? Yes.
Yes, that's my understanding, is you have to do two separate motions.
We're submitting a statement of interest for both Cold Spring and Hedge, understanding that that ultimately MSBA determines what would be in the best interest, but our hope would be a new school on the Cold Spring lot.
What would be the timeline for this, in case somebody's watching that doesn't watch your meetings? I haven't heard
Last year we said FY28, now it'll be FY29.
Yeah. Like the actual building? Is that what you're asking? Like,
Yeah,
when would the
if it
building
was,
be? You said FY29?
Probably a good 6 to 7 years out.
Yeah,
Okay.
There's a very long process that we need to follow.
very long process.
There would be funds that would be required during the, just
Right,
like we
which
did
is
with
why
And-
I asked
yeah,
the
at
question,
each-
so people
Yeah,
watching
so this
know
is
exactly
not,
know.
this vote is not binding any funds towards that, just to be
No,
clear.
we have to go through all the different, like, design and all those different phases before we get to the shovel in the ground.
Any questions from the board or comments? Mr. Canty?
So you want this front and back read verbatim?
It's two different
Separate.
motions.
Two separate,
different
yeah.
motions.
One for
Right,
each.
one for each school. I mean, it's phrased in the past tense. So you want it read verbatim?
That's what we've been instructed, that wording is exactly what needs to be read and signed.
Okay.
yes.
Yeah,
Does-
Kim read
It's
them.
come from the MSBA.
Okay. All right. I can do that at the chairman's
If it's
pleasure.
not right, you'll be reading it again.
I
go
expect
ahead.
that. All right. Well, Mr. Chairman, having convened in an open meeting on March 19th, 2024, prior to the statement of interest submission closing date, the Select Board of Plymouth, Massachusetts, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinance, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form dated April 2024 for the Hedge Elementary School located at 258 Standish Avenue, Plymouth, Massachusetts, which describes and explains the following deficiencies and the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating and ventilation systems to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in a school facility. And replacement of or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide for a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements. And hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the town of Plymouth to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Mr. Bletzer seconds.
Discussion? Mr. Helm?
Yes.
Mr. Bletzer?
I vote yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Unanimous.
Having convened in an open meeting on March 19th, 2024, prior to the Statement of Interest submission closing date, the Select Board of Plymouth, Massachusetts, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the Statement of Interest form dated April 2024 for the Cold Spring Elementary School located at 25 Alden Street, Plymouth, Massachusetts, which describes and explains the following deficiencies and the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating and ventilation systems to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in a school facility. And replacement of or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide for a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements. And hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this Statement of Interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the town of Plymouth to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Canty, second by Mr. Bletzer. Discussion? Mr. Helm?
Yes.
Mr. Bletzer?
I vote yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Unanimous.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
You want to
Thank
So
you
then
for
that
keep the
calls-
posting.
close
Yep.
your meeting?
So that at 7:10, we will close the joint part of our school committee meeting. So thank you. And we'll close out of our meeting completely. And just I don't know if there's a sound issue happening, but I just got a text that it's hard to hear.
Okay, thank you. The board's going to take a 5-minute recess. Anyone wishing to speak under public comment? Please identify yourself for the record, sir, and make sure the green light's on. Ms. Flynn, is anyone online that you know of? Okay.
Evan Malaguti, Precinct 2, Town Meeting. Listening to the conversation tonight, and I wanted to actually state that during the last joint meeting with the Select Board, School Committee, and Finance Committee, when it was talked about for the budget, when you were going over the roughly $3 or so million that is going to be put into reserve for negotiation and all that, that a couple of the Finance Committee members were asking about revenue enhancement and everything for the school side. I was watching that meeting virtually at home that night, and during the next day or so, I actually emailed the superintendent about some of those ideas and also some ideas that I had as well too, plus also gave a few of the web addresses for certain grant programs that the federal government and the state had for transportation, the ACT grant, the Accelerated Clean Transportation Grant, which is for electric buses, which the state was just awarded about 85 or so buses this past year through that program for some of the districts near us, and also including, I believe, Worcester as well too. And that program is going for, I think, the next 3 to 5 years for that. Along with that, there's also state and federal funding for the studies for transportation as well too, if it's worthwhile for ownership of the buses or a collaboration within a public-private partnership or within intermunicipal partnerships. Along with those, I just found it myself listening tonight that I never received any reply back from the superintendent about that, as we're talking about transportation issues, infrastructure issues, and all that. So I just want it to be known to the public that there are people that are actually looking at this, but there's not the two-way exchange of information, that one may reply, but the other side isn't responding back. And I just wanted to say that some of these could be looked at as avenues if both parties are actually going to be willing to be at the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malaguti. Anyone else wishing to speak on the public comment? Seeing none, I think we'll move over to the town manager's report.
Okay.
Mr. Brandisi?
Sure, thank you very much. I just have a number of public works updates I'd like to bring the board up to speed on. First and foremost, as you know, last fall we completed the Seaside Trail extension, so that's been complete. So the last item to complete the Seaside Trail, David Gould is working with the DPW on adding bottle filling stations to the Seaside Trail. As you know, we've had a number of requests over the years to add water to the trail, given the fact that this is a highly used trail for animals. So that we expect that to be completed before the summer months. In addition to that, an update on Stevens Field. So starting next week, they will start installing the playground. Right now, we are still planning on completing this project no later than July 1st. Right now, it's on time and under budget, so we'll keep the board posted on any progress on Stevens Field. In addition to that, as you all know, the town boat ramp is under construction. We've had a number of concrete pieces installed to date. Right now, we are planning to reopen the town boat ramp by mid-April, so just a few weeks away. There's a second component to that project. That's the walkway that goes around the lobster hut. That'll be a second phase of the project, but we do want to get the boat ramp open as soon as possible, especially for boating season this year. You may have read in the Plymouth Independent today, there's been an update on the Brewster Garden Stairs. We are hoping to open those within a week. There'll be a final walkthrough conducted for any punch list items by the end of this week, and hoping that we can open that soon. That's a great project. I remember as the assistant town manager back in 2016 going over to that space with Ted Bubbins talking about adding stairs in that area on Main Street Extension. So here we are 8 years later, we're finally completing this project. In addition to that, the Fowler Road Bridge is expected to reopen by the end of May. That project is moving along. And then just an update on Water Street. So there's a number of things that happen in Water Street. Right now, we're at the intersection of Brewster Street. They just added a manhole last week at Brewster Street. They are planning in the next 2 weeks to close the section from Brewster Street to the DCR bathrooms. That section of Water Street will be closed. There'll be no traffic, no one-way traffic, because it's so narrow in that space. So the DPW will be knocking on the abutters' doors, notifying them that that space is going to be closed. We're expecting that to be closed probably for the better part of 3 to 4 weeks in order to finish that aspect of the project. In addition to that, they want to put the street back together as soon as possible. So once we go ahead to close that section of the project, behind the project, you'll notice that there's a bunch of Jersey barriers and fences. As soon as possible, and we're hoping within the next couple of weeks, we're going to start to clear that space and start to put the road back together to open up the parking right on Water Street for the businesses that are being burdened by this project. So that's the update as of right now. Things are moving along well. We are still on pace to have this project completed by June 30th. If things go well, certainly earlier than that, but we'll keep everybody posted. And again, just to reiterate, there'll be signage down there. We'll be knocking on doors down there. We'll try to talk to as many of the abutters as possible. And we know the abutters down there. We've already talked to them in the past, so we feel like we have a good connection with those folks. And then just so folks are aware, BID over on Jordan Road, they have applied for an 8,000 square foot addition to the emergency department. They received ZBA approval yesterday. They are now going to move forward and submit what is known as a determination of need application to the Mass Department of Public Health. Once they get that approval, then they can go ahead with their expansion. We're expecting, because it's going to be a phase-in approach, their 8,000 square foot addition to take up to 2 to 3 years to complete. On one side of the ledger, part of this DON process is something known as a community benefits to these types of projects. And so when these types of capital improvement projects are approved by the state, the hospital is required to provide community benefit dollars back to the community. So we are poised nicely to work with the hospital on acquiring those dollars and to be put towards good use. Now that we have a Health and Human Services Department in place, we plan on meeting with the hospital in future months, once they get their approvals, to learn how we can be a part of this community benefits program. And then last, the SHOPS collection program was brought up at the last meeting. I talked to the chief today. He will be working with the Public Health Division, Karen Keene, the director, on developing a revised SHOPS collection program. So as you all know, we used to take SHOPS at Station 1. Unfortunately, they had to stop that program because they have a machine that incinerates the SHOPS and crushes the SHOPS. And there was other things, not SHOPS, in those containers that have damaged the machine. So until we can come back with a better, more revised SHOPS collection program, it'll be suspended. But we hope to have something up and running in the next 6 to 8 weeks. And the last, I just want to remind folks that March 29th is approaching, so those folks that are interested in running for elected office, papers are due by 5 p.m. on March 29th. Pending any questions, that's all I have.
Any questions or comments for the town manager, Mr. Canty?
Derek, the water stations on the Seaside Trail, is it more than one station, multiple stations?
I'd have to double check with David. I know we have grant funding for one.
Okay.
I know we received requests for more than one, so I'd have to double check exactly how many. But he said that they're actively installing those.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Select Board open discussion, new business. Mr. Canty, then Mr. Blitzer.
I was contacted by a resident about concerns about the training green. That's the little park across from Nathaniel Morton Elementary, about the lack of lighting in there, green, when it's dark, as well as the deteriorating walkways in that particular area. I know I went to the Memorial Day ceremonies last May, and I did notice that several of the cement walkways were in quite bad shape at that time, and I don't imagine they've improved in the last 10 months. But I think there was concerns about not only the tripping hazard by the cracks and breakup of those walkways, but also that as it gets darker, the lighting compounded with those cracks makes it even a bigger concern for walkability, accessibility, and safety. So I had directed the resident to reach out to Parks and Forestry, which I understand that they did, but I also said I would mention it this evening. So if that is something that could be looked at, I think that would be beneficial.
That is a great point. I know that this was on, I had previously seen this on one of the capital plans. I don't believe it was funded this past year, but that's something that, we can certainly rise to the top as a priority item, given the safety hazard.
Thank you.
Mr. Blutzer?
Yep. Derek, I have a question. It came to my attention, one of the tenants at one of the restaurant at the Village Landing contacted me and said all the tenants are very uneasy about what's going on down there. They're hearing that it's going to be Lindcrest Hotel, who owns it, is going to be developing that into a convention center. And, I told her I'd look into it. I had heard they talked about it. I don't at this point believe that's what's going to happen, but I don't know officially that that's true or not true. Apparently, according to what they said, and I don't know if this is true or not, but they're only giving them like 2-year leases. And then I saw it on Facebook. Apparently, the waterfront restaurant was trying to sell, and they ended up not renewing their lease, and they've walked away from it. And apparently somebody was supposedly buying it, but he was on Facebook saying that they were only going to get a 5-year lease, so they walked away from the purchase. So it's concerning to me. If Lindcrest wants to make that into we certainly can't stop them, and I know they're a reputable group, but if that's not what's going to happen, then apparently they might be having a meeting Thursday. I don't know if you know anything about that, if they contact. But I think the tenants are meeting with them, and hopefully they can get this resolved. So, because it's getting out there now, and the misinformation in Plymouth. And if this is not what's going to happen, I just hope they can assure their tenants that they're not going anywhere, so we don't lose. They're very important to our tourism business, in downtown and waterfront. So it's concerning to me, and if you get any information, I'd appreciate it. So anyway.
Yeah, I can't speak to the Lindcrest family's business practices, but I can tell you that the Economic Development Foundation plans to issue an RFI, a request for information regarding a convention center. As you know, there was a convention center study. One of the proposed locations was that property,
right? No, I knew
1620. So I don't know if Lindquist plans on responding to that RFI. I know that there's been other interests. Other developers have expressed an interest. So
right.
I think there'll be more to come on once we get the RFI back to the foundation as to who has interest.
Right. I just, like I said, whether it's they're going to do it or not do it, as soon as they know, I just hope, because I know what happened at the waterfront. I'm not too happy about how they just closed their place, didn't tell the employees, from what I'm hearing, and people, were left with functions, that all of a sudden they're scrambling to reschedule their rehearsal parties, their showers, so I don't like to see that happen. That's not good for business in the town. So anyway.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you.
Take a look at that.
Excuse me. Anything on the letters? Old business? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Have a good week.